Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to you all on behalf of National HRD Network. I'm Shripa, working as NHRD Young Talent Council member, and professionally, I'm working as Senior Manager in Train Technologies. This session is a part of series of sessions being conducted by Mind Matters and YTC of NHRDN. Here, we try to bring to you on a monthly basis conversations related to different topics of mental health. The primary aim of these sessions is to normalize and destigmatize mental health issues. Before we start the session, I'll share with you a quick summary of what we covered in the previous session, which we conducted in the month of Jan.
You're on mute, Shipa.
I think while sharing the screen, I'm not able to unmute myself. So I'll just give a quick recap of what we did in the last session. It was around building self-esteem, conducted by Dr. Havovi and Shubha. And there we discussed on details around understanding and developing self-esteem and self-worth, explored the influence of upbringing, environment, and experiences in shaping self-esteem and identifying practical strategies to build self esteem and supports its development in colleagues. Today's session is a fireside chat with Birender Ahluwalia and Janine Nirmal, and the topic is positivity, a force multiplier. I'll hand it over to Janine to take forward the session.
Thank you, Shiba. Good evening, everyone. Life has a remarkable way of untangling even the most complex of challenges. As Beatles remind us, sometimes we get by with a little help from our friends. Personally, I find that I'm at my best positive, connected, and content self when I remain and maintain a positive mindset. That's why today's conversation, Positivity, a force multiplier, is so close to my heart. We're here because the number tell us a compelling story. 91% of our employees report disengagement, a 22% rise in individuals seeking counseling or EAP support. Nearly 60% of manager-referred cases show early signs of mental stress. These statistics remind us the urgent need to embrace and study positivity. To me, positivity is about staying balanced both in mind and body, even when faced with adversity. I believe that happiness is a choice, and we must consciously make. Also consider the studies from Gallup World Poll reveal that 57% of young adults look to leaders for hope. These insights help us see why hope is such an integral part of leadership. In today's world, with challenges spanning from finances, work pressure, personal relationships, and beyond, effective leaders must do more than just manage tasks. They need to understand and address 4 core needs of their team: hope, trust, compassion, and stability. Optimism and hope are 4 key needs. On this, we will ask Birendra to share experiences because he has been in this space of positivity for 20 years with a wealth of insight. So Birendra, how does optimism and hope interlock to empower leadership?
Thank you so much for the introduction and for the statistics that you talked about. Actually, I want to ask the group which is here, if you could tell us on chat, according to you, what is optimism and what is hope? You can tell us on chat very quickly, everybody. According to you, what's optimism? What's hope? Okay. The best option will prevail. Anybody else? Okay, some interesting answers coming up there. Right? It's about knowing that a positive outcome is expected and hope is what we expect as an outcome. We see some very interesting concepts around both of these. Yeah, hope is a ray because hope is one of those things that only when times are dire, when times are hard, hope comes into play, right? And that's an interesting part because when you look at overall, I'm going to first zoom out when you look at hope and optimism, and I'm going to first look at perhaps something called positivity and happiness. We've heard all about it, and I'm going to talk to you about some very interesting parts about the science. Okay, would you be surprised if I told you that you can actually increase your net worth by 20%? Okay, would you be surprised, anybody? And is that desirable? So everybody, quickly on chat, give me an emoji if it's desirable and it is. Yeah, and it is something that you can do. Or for that matter, increasing your chances of getting married and staying married happily. Okay. And that's the second part of hope and optimism. And the third, which is the interesting one, which is lifespan and health span both increases when you when you inculcate positivity, when you inculcate the broader spectrum of happiness. Okay. Why? Because whichever country I visit, okay, the first thing I do, and I urge all of you to do this, is Google this phrase, why am I? Very quickly, everybody, Google this phrase, why am I? And you'll find some very interesting queries coming about. Okay. Why am I single? Why am I not losing weight? Can you see what all we're searching for? And if you add one more magical word, it comes up to why am I still? Right? And that's an interesting one, isn't it? That look at what all we are searching for. Okay? And everybody on chat, give me a thumbs up if you had parents who told you, please study hard. Okay? And why was it they told you to study hard? What was the expectation? So the expectation was that if I study hard, okay, and why did they want you to have a future? They wanted to have a future because A, you would be successful, and therefore you would be happy. Okay? And therefore, what happens is we kept pushing happiness beyond and beyond and beyond our horizons. And research is indicating that, hey, a lot of positive people, they tend to work hard on their own and they don't need external motivation to work hard, and therefore therefore they are successful. Okay? And I tell you only one thing, because everything that comes in the way of our happiness is summarized in one slide, and this is the slide about what comes in the way of our happiness, because our everyday lives, Monday morning when we go back to work, our lives will start looking exactly like this. And therefore, what sets positive people apart is that positive people generate their own positivity, and therefore they work harder on their intellectual faculties, and about their social connections, etc. And therefore they create flourishing lives for themselves. And here's the crux of today's session. When one part of your life goes up, we always say work and life balance. I think that's a concept you need to retire, because work and life balance indicates either work goes up, life goes down, life goes up, work goes down. That's a concept we need to retire, because what science is showing is when work goes up, life goes up. When work goes down, life goes down. Ever had a day, you had a lousy day at work? What was your mood when you came back home? Was it amazing? You were peppy? Impossible, right? Or you had a horrible morning, horrible start to the morning, and you reached work. Did you suddenly become peppy? There is no way that would have happened. So therefore, work rises together and falls together. And therefore, it impacts every single domain of our lives, whether it's our work life, our health, our financial well-being, all of it matters. And therefore, when you look at optimism, and I think Chris Peterson said it brilliantly, he said, positivity is not a spectator sport. Okay? You have to actually practice what makes you happy and what makes you positive. And I want to dispel the third myth. Okay? The first myth we dispelled was the equation. The second myth we dispelled was uh, about what positive people do in terms of a force multiplier. And the third one is around this. Thomas Carlyle was asked, how do you reform the world? So before you start looking at, hey, I am positive, how do I make other people positive? Or I am happy, but other people are the cause I'm unhappy. You ask only one thing. And Thomas Carlyle, when he was asked, how do you reform the world? He said, look after yourself and you will have one rascal less. And therefore, positivity and optimism starts with you and ends with you. Okay? And that's the key about positivity and optimism. Okay? And therefore, when you look at optimism, okay, a lot of cliches around glass half full, glass half empty. There are two key things when it comes to optimism. The first is when an adverse event strikes. When an adverse event strikes, the optimists, they will view the problem as external, and therefore they can dissociate from it themselves rather than start blaming other people. The pessimists will start personalizing the problem. They will look at it as something wrong with me, something wrong with my relationships, and they will start personalizing, or they will start going into this me versus them, also called paranoia, right? They go into a zone of paranoia. So that's internal versus external. But here's the interesting part, okay, about positivity. Before I go there, positive people and optimists, they view that adversity as a temporary event. The pessimists view it as a lifelong impact, and therefore they go into a zone of rumination. Okay? And therefore, what is rumination? Rumination is endless worrying without taking any action. Right? So, if you are undergoing an adverse event, okay, the best thing to do is just a very small thing. And I want you to think about when you undergo an adversity, what is your affirmation that you tell to yourself? What is your bounce back mantra? So, for example, I have a full portfolio of mantras. When something goes wrong, I look at one of these and then that gives me some little space to bounce back. So, everybody tell me on chat, what's your positive bounce back mantra? What's your affirmation you tell yourself when something goes wrong? So rumination, Rekha, is when I keep worrying without taking action. So therefore, I keep thinking about, hey, somebody said something negative to me. Why did this person say so? What is the why? And therefore, your mind keeps thinking about it versus going up to the person and saying, hey, you said this. Can you explain this a bit more? What made you give me that feedback? Can you give me some examples? Can you give me some constructive ideas on how I can solve it? The pessimist will keep thinking about, hey, I got negative feedback. I'm not going to get a good appraisal. Therefore, I'm not going to get a good bonus. Therefore, I cannot go for my next vacation. My family will think ill of me. Okay. So therefore, your mind starts to go into all these stories. So endless worrying without taking action.
Virendra, there was another question directly posted. Is positivity the same as always saying only positive things?
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. We always get it. So positivity is about first you will get the adversity on your own. And I'm going to give you a very interesting example. Okay, it's almost as if I planted that question myself. Okay, because I'm going to just ask you to wait for a minute, and I'm going to answer that question. Okay, so you see, when you have a little mantra for yourself, it creates what's called psychological space. Okay? And therefore, you first embrace that negativity and then you choose that action. Because the third step between a positive person and a negative person is first, a positive person will focus on the controllable. Okay? And the negative person will focus on the destructive habit. So how many of you, for example, when you have a bad day, you go and watch Netflix? Okay. And what that actually does is takes it away from you getting good quality sleep. Okay? And therefore, or how many of you undertake retail therapy, for example? How many of you go online and shop? Those are what we call destructive habits. Okay. Okay. So therefore, you see that's the difference. Okay. And therefore, to demonstrate that point, I'm going to do a little exercise on all of you. I want you to close your eyes. And just for a moment, I'm going to ask you to visualize. You've put on television, everybody. Close your eyes. Visualize television. Donald Trump has come on. He's railing and raving about the world. Witness on television all the wars, all the chaos. Witness all the ambiguity. Witness the stock markets falling. Witness all the foreign exchange issues across the country. Witness all your mutual fund portfolios dwindling. And stay with that emotion for a minute. Just for some time, stay with it. And now I'm going to show you an image. Everybody, tell me on chat, what do you see? What do you see, everybody? Tell me quickly on chat, what do you see? Quickly, everybody, what do you see on chat? You fast pace. What else, everybody? What else do you see? Dabur. What else do you see? Come on, quickly, everybody. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm going to all of you, I'm going to ask you to again pause for a moment, okay, and in your mind's eye, bring the image of a loved one. In your mind's eye, just bring the image of a loved one. Stay with that person. A person who you really adore, admire, who's always there for you. Bring the image of this loved one and stay with this person. And now I'm going to show you an image. I want all of you to spot 30 positives in this image. Okay, everybody, quickly, I want you to spot 30 positives in this image. So everybody, quickly on chat, spot 30 positives in this image. I want you to spot 30 positives in this image. There's a nice big tree. Come on, everybody. The 30 positives in this image. Okay, people getting on with their lives.
Should we put it in chat?
Yes, on chat, everybody. Everybody on chat. 30 positives. Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, lot of movement. Okay. Effective utilization of space, 6. Come on, everybody. 30 positives in this image. Yes, signals in place, city planning. So that's 8. Okay. There are nice visual displays, 10. Baba Black Sheep, 11. Everybody spots Baba Black Sheep. Okay. The directions being given are clear. Okay. That's 12. Okay. Now, how was the first experience when I asked you to witness all the chaos in the world? How was that experience? And what was your response when you saw this image? Colorful, yes, of course, Sinduja. So how was the first, how did you feel when I asked you to visualize all the negatives in this world? Yeah, it was painful. Okay. And therefore, okay, it stopped us from looking at this image and spotting what's good. How was the second exercise when I asked you to imagine somebody close to you, and therefore, how was that experience? Warm and fuzzy. Okay. And therefore, you see what happens is when I put you in a positive frame of mind, okay, you started looking at that same image through a positive lens. Right? And therefore, your brain could suddenly detect what's positive. Okay? And therefore, it comes back to this. Positive people, two people experience the same situation. The optimist gets on with it, recognizes what's in their control, starts taking action. So the optimist's focus is on changing, seeking help, planning, and doing. Whereas the pessimist, they tend to start getting more drained, more drowned into a negative spiral. Okay? And therefore, that is the key difference. So the person who asks the question, is it about ignoring the negative? It is about scanning the environment and seeing, okay, I understand this is positive, these are negatives. What can I control? And therefore, optimists focus on what is controllable. Okay. Somebody was asking me, you travel abroad a lot, foreign exchange has gone up, aren't you worried? I said, I will only be worried if I work for the RBI because I'm responsible for the foreign exchange. Okay. Otherwise, I can't control whether the dollar is 81 or whether the dollar is 91. I can't control it. So therefore, I have to just make sure I correct my expenses based on my allowances that I have. Okay. So worrying about foreign exchange only if any of you work for RBI, and that too in the forex department. Okay. So that is what you see, that's the difference. It's about focusing on the controllables versus the non-controllables. And therefore, okay, I call these molecules and I call these optimism molecule. What's a molecule? A molecule is a step too small to fail that you can use to build optimism. So the first one to build your optimism muscle is intentionally do something every week that makes you uncomfortable. Okay? So everybody tell me on chat, what's the one thing you could do that you could go into which will make you uncomfortable? What's the one thing you will do in the next 1 week which makes you uncomfortable? Now, the way this works is that when you consciously put yourself into an uncomfortable situation, your brain begins to adapt. And therefore, your brain begins to anticipate negativity and therefore gets ready to respond. And therefore, it gets, as the cliche goes, gets comfortable being uncomfortable. Okay. So what could be the new, Janine, what could be the new skill that you could learn? For example, I am learning completely.
An instrument, probably?
Yeah, I'm learning Canva and I'm enjoying it.
Lovely.
Yeah. So therefore, I've started something called Word of the Day on LinkedIn, where I'm using all my Canva skills and all my positivity skills, okay, to talk about something which is interesting. Okay. So you see, learning new skills. The second is you would have all heard of growth mindset. Okay. But I want to talk about an interesting aspect of growth mindset, which is related to optimism. Because many times the quality of praise that you get can lead to an optimism or a pessimistic mindset. So when you praise for process and application and strategy, that builds your growth mindset and therefore optimism. Okay? So, and then of course the famous one from Carol Dweck, every time you're stuck and you start and your inner voice starts to tell you, I'm not good at maths, I'm not good at analytical skills, for example. Okay? Tell yourself, I am not good at analytical skills as yet. Okay? And then you take the first step to learn analytical skills. Okay? Therefore, everybody, I want you to think about one adverse situation you're either currently going or you're anticipating. Think about one adverse situation you're currently undergoing or you're anticipating. And now I want you to reframe that same situation as a control, as an opportunity. So let me give an example at a corporate level first. Okay? Three banks that I have worked, or three financial institutions that I have worked with, RBI came in and completely stopped some of their banking operations. And I was involved in all the three. It's not because of me that they stopped operations. I was called in after the ban came in. And it was very interesting. The same RBI rule was applicable to everybody in that department. It was the same RBI rule. But the positive people, they said, hey, wait a minute. I know we can't do these things. What can we do? And they started focusing on what they can do so that they can use the time of the RBI ban to take constructive steps. And interestingly, all these three organizations that I worked with, whose departments were shut down temporarily, okay, we saw the same thing. The positive people responded fastest. The pessimists, they said, my life is ruined. Okay? And therefore, you see at a corporate level how this plays out. Okay? And you see the same thing at an individual level. Okay? Have you ever seen a scene in an airport when flights are delayed? What do people do when flights are delayed? Or when they're delayed inordinately, what do some people do?
Get frustrated and have conversations with the desk.
Yeah, and they'll start shouting at the airline staff. And I always wonder, here is this 22-year-old person who's standing behind the counter. Do you think shouting at her is going to make the pilot land the plane faster? Right? Nothing of that sort. Or do you think magically the fog will disappear because you shouted at this person? Right? And therefore, but some people, okay, for example, me, I enjoy flight delays. It's half an hour nap more for me. Okay, if nothing else. Or my latest obsession is walking. So if somebody tells me half an hour of flight delay, I say, wait a minute, that means 3,000 steps. Okay, so I take the same moment, it becomes 3,000. Yes, absolutely, Poonam. Same with traffic. Okay, what could you do when you're stuck in traffic? Any suggestions? You're stuck in traffic. How would you reframe that position? I'm stuck in traffic. Sorry, somebody put it on direct message. When you're stuck in traffic, how would you reframe traffic? How would you reframe traffic? Okay. Make a to-do list. Okay, listen to a podcast, call a friend, call an aunt who always tells you never call me. Okay, use that time. Okay. So you see, that's how an optimist, there are two cars, one car as an optimist, one car as a pessimist. Two people respond differently. Okay. And for many of you, I'm going to give you a very interesting thought. Okay. You all heard of the Pareto principle, right? And I always ask this question. Okay. 100 people have a productivity of, let's say, a team of 100 people, they have a total revenue of 1,000 rupees. If I ask you for the average, okay, what will you say is the average? Remember, we always say productivity, right? Revenue divided by number of people. What would you say is the answer? What's the productivity? If 1,100 people produce 1,000 rupees of revenue, the tendency is to say 10, right? 10 is the average. Okay? But that's not how it works. Here's what some very interesting science suggests. Science suggests, and we know this from Pareto principle, that your top 20 people will actually generate perhaps 500 of their revenue. Therefore, their productivity will be on an average, will be around 50. Okay. And all your negative, sorry, they will be at around what? 520, 25, sorry. Okay. But your negative, but the other people who are in the bottom quartile, and they will always be in a very interesting situation. Usually they will be at a productivity of 2 and 3. With some companies that we worked with, okay, we started analyzing what makes this top 10% people in sales different from the bottom 10%. Any guesses? And therefore, we tweaked the interview process to ask only one question. Any guesses? What was that one question we asked? What was the one question we asked, which really tells you whether this person is going to excel in sales or not, or for that matter, in any quantitative? Because what we did was we analyzed what puts these top 10% differently. What we found is this. These people in the top 10%, they came from some very financially challenging backgrounds. What do I mean by that? Father is an auto driver. Okay? Father is an alcoholic. Family business vanished. Okay? Or somebody cheated them. Or cancer took away a large part of the savings of the family. Okay? And suddenly, this person was thrust into responsibilities. We find when people who were thrust in these responsibilities, when they enter corporate life, they tend to excel because they faced huge challenges in their lives. Right? And we started thinking about it. And this was way back in 2011 when we did the first experiments. What we found is something very interesting by asking one question. And that question is this: tell me about an event which disrupted your life or was a huge challenge for you. Tell me about that event and how did you overcome this? Okay. So we had some very interesting stories. We had stories about uh, people, for example, they were looking after their brothers. They got a call for the interview. They got their baby brothers to the interview. Can you imagine? Okay. Or they said, okay, you know what? I've married off 3 of my sisters. Okay. So therefore, okay, and therefore, that's what we say. The positive optimist people, when surrounded with the hugest of adversities, they take on more responsibilities. Okay. The negative people let it get to them and they would then get into more undesirable behaviors. So that is the key definition and key manifestation of optimists. Okay. I'm going to pause here for any questions that's come about so far.
Yes, Virendra, the same question on positivity, the same as always saying only positive things.
Yeah. So it's about recognizing the negative is there in my life. Okay. And you do 3 things. Actually, there's 4. I've knocked 1 off. So when you see a negative event, you look at it. Is it caused by me, or is this something that which is driven by external circumstances? Okay. Did you see that in COVID? Okay. Some people loved the experience of COVID. Some people hated it. Okay. So they could identify internal versus external. Okay. So you see the same situation, internal, external. You see the same situation and say, is it permanent or is it temporary? And therefore you ask the second question. And the third question that you ask for is, what do I control? What can I not control? Okay. So that's what differentiates a positive and negative. Do more positive. All of us experience the same negativity. But what happens is a negative person is going like this, will drop down, will stay down longer and take longer to come back up. A positive person experiences the same amount of negativity. But the difference is this person drops to a lesser extent and bounces back faster. Okay. So everybody experiences the same negativity. Okay. Unlike what social media says, social media dictates my life is the worst. Everybody has a brilliant spouse, brilliant children, brilliant job, brilliant conferences. Somebody was telling me, all my batchmates have gone to Switzerland. I'm going to Mulund. Okay. So therefore, okay, my life sucks. Okay. I say, you don't know, because when I talk to people, they've got amazing careers. Go to them on their LinkedIn. Sir, can you find me a job? Wait a minute, you just praised your boss 5 minutes back. Right? So you see, positive people experience the same negativity. It's just that because of their training, the intensity of the drop is smaller and they spend lesser time in the down state. They bounce back faster.
Thank you.
So that's the
Absolutely.
difference.
100%. I think the next question you've already answered, which is the one small thing I can explore in myself to find out if I'm positive enough. So I think you're bouncing back and is essentially the telltale to it.
Yeah. What I'll also do is, I don't know if I can upload a file. Okay. Can I upload files? I think I can. I will upload a file which is something called the life orientation test. Okay. I've uploaded the file for all of you. This tells you, so if you take the scale, it will tell you, are you an optimist and what is your scale? Okay. So you could do this study, you could do this little scale for yourself. Okay. Obviously, higher the score, the more positive, more optimist you are. The lower the score, the more pessimist you are.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from the group that we want to ask folks? One other question from the direct conversation, Birendra. Are there situations where positivity is just not possible? The loss of a loved one or a job.
Yeah. So it's interesting. There are the three key ones. I actually wrote an article called Thank You Cancer. Okay. I'm going to try and find it and post it. What they find is that when people were detected with cancer, okay, do you know anybody? Do you know people who were detected with cancer? What happened to them when they were detected with cancer? What happened to them?
Yeah, they go through shock and denial. I think the 5 stages of grief is what I'm told.
But then what happens is something very interesting. Most of them will reorient their lives. Usually they pivot into more focus on family, more focus on personal health, more focus on their own meaning and purpose of life. Okay? Regardless of, okay, but some people who get the same diagnosis, okay, go into a shell and therefore their mortality also increases. Okay? So that was cancer patients. Research shows that for positive people, even when they get divorced, okay, the chances of finding their next partner is also higher than pessimists. Okay? So we've taken care of cancer, we've taken care of divorce. Let's take unemployment, for example. Positive people, yes, they will go through that phase, but they will very quickly get into, okay, let me get my CV going, let me start reaching out to my network. But here's the best part. Positive people, remember I spoke about it here, okay? Positive people spend time on building their social connections. Can you see that there? I talked about it. Now, because positive people before the event have built social connections. And how do they do that? They build social connections by asking about connecting with them, helping others, offering help, offering ideas, offering the network before the event. Now, because they did all this before the negative event, they are more likely to have people who help them back. Okay? Versus negative people who did not build or spend time on their social competencies. Okay? Therefore, people do not help them back when they actually need it. Okay, so that takes care of. And then comes what you talked about, death. Death, okay. So therefore, when you look at the four key ones, the one is a chronic disease like cancer. The second one is, and in terms of death, positive people find more meaning in the life of the person that they lost. Okay? And therefore, they bounce back much faster. Okay? And this is also where something it goes into trauma. Okay? So that's an interesting one. Okay? They did some research on double amputees. Okay, they asked double amputees before they were told that both their legs are going to be amputated. They asked them, if you get a dire diagnosis, will you be unhappy? They said, of course I will be unhappy. And they were asked, how long do you think this unhappiness will last? They said, for heaven's sake, it will last a lifetime. And then they were given the diagnosis that they're going to lose both their lower limbs. Guess what happened? What happened is something interesting, that yes, from their baseline of happiness and optimism, it did drop. But within 8 months, it had gone back to normal. So these are people about to lose both the lower limbs. Okay? So we've covered loss of limb, we've covered loss of job, we've covered cancer, we've covered death. Okay. Anything else which could be worse than that? Right? So you see how it works out is because you built this muscle before the event. Okay, we call it upstream, midstream, downstream. So because you did it upstream, okay, when you actually face that adversity, you are better prepared for life. And therefore, you can solve it as it happens. And even when it has happened, you do not go into the situation, my life sucks, my life is terrible. Okay? You take that view of that, hey, I'm perhaps going to grow. Okay? And it comes back to exactly this. Happiness and positivity is not a spectator sport. Okay? You have to practice it. You have to say, hey, what can I do from here? Okay? Shubha, how do we build positivity muscles in ourselves? Small things. Okay? And therefore, I'm going to talk to you something very interesting. Martin, if you like reading, everybody, Martin Seligman, who's one of the founders of positive psychology, he's written an amazing book called Flourish. Okay? And here he talks about something called pursuing accomplishment and achievement. Okay? And what he says is sometimes when you achieve these big goals, okay? Now this is a great positivity molecule that I always follow. All of us have heard of SMART goals, right? But then I'm not a very smart person. Okay? Therefore, I like to follow what Michael Bungay Stanier says, worthy goals. What's a worthy goal? A worthy goal is something that gives you a thrill. It's something that's important. It's something that's daunting. Okay? So everybody think about what's your worthy goal for the next 1 year. And tell us on chat, what's your worthy goal for the next 1 year? Okay? So you see small things like these. So what Martin Seligman talked about is A, positive emotions. So then he talked about engagement at work, which is P, positive emotions, E, engagement at work, R, relationships, M, meaning, and A, accomplishment. He called it the PERMA model of optimism. Okay? The PERMA. Okay? Now, question, when you thought about your worthy goal, what happened in your head? What happened in your head when you thought about your worthy goal? What happened?
It required a level of introspection, right?
Yeah. And then when you start getting excited, you start taking those first steps towards that goal. Yeah. Great. Any more questions?
A lot of today's generation is the young folks, Virendra, have a lot of anxiety, social anxiety. And so telling them to have a positive mindset may not necessarily connect with them. So is there a different approach that they could try with regards to how to come out of this social anxiety? Because to our point, or to your point, connections and networking is building those muscles even.
Yeah. There are 3, 4 reasons why that anxiety is going up. The first is comparison, and therefore social media. I always tell everybody within the age bracket 30, you want all your problems to go away, delete your Instagram. Suddenly you will find the world is a better place. Okay? Social media is triggering all these comparisons. Like I said, the anxiety is coming that, uh, so for example, I have clients, okay, who in the last 3 years, 4 years, they've had a 5x increase in their wealth. But do you think they compare it that, hey, I've done well? All it needs is one person to have a slightly bigger car. And that's it, finished. Okay? So therefore, number one is anxiety. For the younger generation, the second one is around social connections. Because most of social connecting is now, believe it or not, people are meeting more in the gaming world. If you think people are living in Instagram, nope, they're living in gaming worlds. People are going on dates on the gaming world. Okay, so therefore, encouraging them to make those physical connections. So instead of taking if text message, at least leave a voice note. Maybe try experimenting with a 1-minute phone call. Okay? So when you start exposing them to molecules, okay, we never say start doing this big thing. Just molecules, very tiny steps. Okay? Akhilesh talking about major source of positivity to draw from. So like I said earlier, positive emotions. Okay, so therefore when negative emotions come to us automatically, but when you go and seek those positive emotions, so for example, reading an inspiring quote or reading an inspiring book, okay, spirituality is a huge source. So when we talked about meaning and purpose, okay, which is the M in the PERMA, spirituality is a huge part of it. We find people, very interesting thing on religiosity, by the way. Okay, there's a question, there's a theory about are people who are more religious more positive? Okay, what do you think? Are more religious people more positive, more negative? What do you think? So the very interesting thing they found. What they found is when people go to places of worship, they go for 3 reasons. One is to ask for something. Oh God, please give me this. Okay. We call that beseeching or seeking. Or they give to give gratitude. Oh, I got this. I just came to say thank you. There are some people who just go to a temple for the sake of the community, to connect with God, to spend time with themselves. So 3 types of people, the 3 reasons you go for when you go to a place of worship. Okay. Now you want to guess who's the most happy and who's the most unhappy of the 3 categories of people?
Asking would be unhappy.
Yeah. The second would be,
Gratitude.
yeah, the gratitude. And
Is the happiest.
the happiest people are the ones who just go to stay in the company of God.
Connected, yeah.
And that's why when you go to some, a very large, a very famous place of worship, some people will be jostling those queues, trying to get in here and there. They get a great kick of saying, I got a VIP pass. Okay. Just stay in the temple for heaven's sake, enjoy the community. And you'll find some people doing that. Okay. So guess who comes out happiest when they're in the temple? Some people said, okay, I'm just going to go enjoy it. Okay. I don't need that VIP darshan. Okay. So you see how spirituality, religiosity can also be a sense. So if religiosity, when used for building communities, is a huge sense and a source of positivity, which usually comes a bit later in life. White hair.
Thank you, Virendra. Another question would be around managing really complex managers who are constantly badgering you with negativity. How do we deal with that?
I would suggest there's a researcher by the name John Gottman. Okay, John Gottman and his wife, when they meet a couple, they can predict with 96% accuracy if this couple is going to remain married. And they salvage 75-76% of relationships, right? And what they find, okay, I would suggest you read that. They call it the four apocalypse of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, sorry. Okay, about, and therefore it is stonewalling. I'm going to talk to you about the favorite one. Okay, so this is about, we always think about relationships as intensity. The rule in relationships is frequency over intensity, right? And therefore, when you in a relationship, when you have, every relationship will have conflicts, okay? And therefore, the ratio is 5:1. For every one negative interaction, you need 5 positive interactions. Okay? The happiest relationships have a positive to negative relationship of 8:1. Okay? So we've all heard of the relationship bank account. Today, you have a number to it. Today, you have a number. Okay? Let me ask you a very simple thing. The CEO of your company, would you rather have a half an hour lunch or a 1 hour lunch with that person? Or would you rather have that person meet you 5 minutes every week and ask you some interesting questions and you share something interesting? What would you prefer? Or for people, and I always ask the Valentine question. Okay, and the Valentine question is this: for your spouse or what would she prefer? 12 roses on the 1st of February or 3 roses every Monday? What would you prefer? 12 roses a day, once a month, 3 roses every Monday.
3 roses every Monday. Yeah.
Why is that? 12 and 12, logical, no? In fact, if I say 24 versus 12, shouldn't your happiness be better? It is frequency over intensity. Frequency over intensity. So you see, that's how relationships are built. And therefore, it's always upstream, midstream, downstream. Okay? So if you're facing conflicting relationships, whether it's your boss, whether it's your subordinate, whether it's a mother-in-law, whether it's your spouse, okay, the same human principles apply. Right? Build it upstream, build it midstream, build it downstream. Okay? I won't go into romantic relationships specifically, okay, but I'm just want to give you the operating principles. Try it, 8:1. Okay, another question, by the way. Do you think 10:1 is better than 8:1? If yes, why? If no, why not? Is 10:1 better than 8:1? If yes, why? If no, why not? Instead of you asking me questions, I'm asking you questions. Okay, since we don't have too much time, let me give you the answer. Now, after 8:1, what they find is this. Okay, after 8:1, it usually indicates one person's needs are not being met. And if one person's needs are not being met, what will happen? What will happen? Let me.
There's discord. Yeah, there's discord.
One day it will come out. Have you seen these couples? Suddenly you say, I thought everything was going well in your marriage. What happened? Like, I've been meeting you every day, every week. You never told me. And suddenly, what's it that you decided to leave your partner? Have you had those conversations with somebody? It's because this person kept bottling their needs and therefore subordinating or suppressing their needs. One thing, therefore, over a period of time, it starts getting built up. And therefore, one day it has to come out. And it usually comes out with what we call the pent up energy. Okay? So remember, 8:1, and both people have to be participating. Okay? And by the way, the interesting thing is when I do something good for you, I also feel good, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any more questions? So we've done spirituality, we've done relationships.
encouraging the baby boomers and Gen X to learn new skills? Is that something we can think through?
And actually, you should look up Ellen Langer. You have to learn new skills till the day you leave this planet.
Yeah.
Right? Because most of us, we will live till age 90, 95, 100. Okay? Baby is born in 2025. A large percentage of them will cross 100, 105. Insurance actuaries across the world are already putting their insurance models at age 125. Okay. So therefore, you will not be retiring at age 58, everybody.
Anytime soon,
will
yes.
not be retiring at age 58. Okay. I can assure you. And with finances, global finances being what it is, you will be responsible for your own finances. Okay. So therefore, and that's the rational part. But from a brain development point of view, the day you stop learning these skills, what happens is, and this is what Ellen Langer's research shows, your physical decline starts faster. So mental decline accelerates the physical decline.
Thank you so much, Virendra. I think we've had a fascinating session, lots of learning, lots and lots of learning. My three takeaways from this session are the controllables and the uncontrollables. Absolutely. I think the rumination element to it is counterproductive. And so then also to your point about keeping yourself in an uncomfortable state and grow in the growth mindset. So thank you for that. I would like to hear the others on what your key takeaways would be from this session. If that's possible, we'd love for you to type it out on the chat.
You have to buy me coffee, Chandrasekhar.
Yeah, someone wants the PPT, Virendra.
Yeah, you have to buy me coffee.
So I'm waiting for people. Yes. Yes, Virendra, a lot of your references were lovely books. I'm hoping that Shippy can share that with the participants. A
I'll do
list
that.
of your books.
Absolutely, I'll
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Yeah. I did
And
them. So the latest one, by the way, I'm reading is Life in Three Dimensions by Shigehiro Oishi.
wow, okay.
You should read that. Absolute fabulous on the research. Fabulous modern research, especially done during COVID. So for example, some of the things that he talks about in COVID, people who experienced COVID had a psychologically richer life than people who didn't experience COVID.
Wow.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And people who experienced COVID were more empathetic towards others.
True. Going through it.
Interesting, isn't it? And this was research in Denmark and a couple of other countries. So for such fascinating research, Shigehiro Oishi, Life in Three Dimensions.
We'll absolutely search for that. Thank you.
Let me just pull up my Kindle and I'll give you a screenshot right away of the book I currently have, which will be a good primer for all of you anyway.
If there are no comments, I'd like to say thank you all for your participation and thoughtful responses. I hope today's chat has provided you with practical insights. To me, they've been really mind-opening. Thank you, Virendra. To ensure that we cultivate a positivity within our teams and personal life. Let's continue this conversation beyond today and work together to build a more hopeful, trusting, and compassionate future. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
I'm putting a screenshot of my Kindle so that everybody
Sure.
should. Fastest way of telling you what books I'm reading.
Yeah.
There we go, there we go. I've completely, by the way, moved into
Ebooks, is it?
That's been a hard transition for me, Shubha.
Same here. Sometimes I just want to have that book with me and my marker in hand.
Absolutely. I love my bookmarks. I think more than the book and everything else, it's almost the bookmark.
Okay, let me then show you something. Okay,
Sure.
I used to think that.
Participants, this is actually the program has ended. You're welcome to stay on for this totally random and arbitrary conversation we're having.
See the bookmark there?
Yep.
No, I don't see a bookmark. I see a highlight. Oh, that bookmark. Oh God, that's so professional. Yes.
Yeah, and you find them. See that?
Yeah.
Colorful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You're like, please highlight it differently so that you can
So
keep
he's
track.
saying don't buy all those highlighters in 5 colors and carry on.
Exactly.
But some of us are stationary junkies.
Yep.
Oh, I have a drawer full of them. Okay,
Yeah,
I love them. I feel sorry for them, but yeah. But you see, that's how it's so easy. Yeah.
No, but you're right. Ebooks, it's so much better when you can make notes and refer back. It just makes it assimilating and using the book so much easier.
Yeah.
True.
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 All right. Thank you,
Thank
everyone,
you.
for a wonderful evening.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you. Take
joining.
care. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.